Well, welcome back to the Nutrimedical Report, and we are joined by Bruce McKeeman from HYPERBARIC Dives. Bruce, how's your day been going? And tell us the latest exploits of those people who use or are selling your hyperbaric dive machines, which I tell people every home should have one. Anybody who wants to slow the aging process, help and heal any illness whatsoever, doesn't matter if it's heart disease, inflammatory bowel, post-traumatic brain injury, post-chemotherapy, post-heart bypass where you get the ECMO pump and microclots affect your brain, renal dysfunction, diabetic peripheral neuropathy, chronic sinus bone infections in the sphenopalatine fossa. There really is no health condition that can't be helped by mild hyperbaric oxygen. What's the latest? Bruce, are you there?
I just came back from a conference with over 1,000 doctors, and I had many of them come up and just say thank you. What you're doing is excellent, making it so usable for my patients. I really appreciate what you've done. Yeah, there's no better compliment than for the user or the doctor of the user to say thank you. So it was an incredible time.
Now, if I was to, and I'm going to be doing this with my son who's finishing up his training in naturopathic medicine, oriental medicine, acupuncture in Portland. And when he opens his clinic, when I'm not going to give people an advance notice of when, he'll be coming down here to Southern California, to North County, San Diego, because it will be near his family, and we'll be able to help support with their little kids. But the first thing we'll be doing in his office, besides having his acupuncture rooms and his massage rooms and visiting doctors that will come in and like naturopathic or other types of specialists that need to come in and do their work, we want to have mild hyperbaric chambers there, proline infrared sauna, and rooms where they can have actually things like energetic therapy such as lumen photon, etc. But one of the most important is mild hyperbarics. And I can't tell you, people should consider when you're doing hyperbarics not just like 20 or 30 sessions and 3 atmospheres. It's not necessary. I think that the change in pressure to 1.3 atmospheres, the change in oxygen concentration that is dissolved in the tissues has an epigenetic gene switching effect. In fact, even the treatment for toxic hyperoxia, which is 2 months oxygen at 3 atmospheres, is mild hyperbarics. So even the helicopters that fly, and I think we talked about this in the last show, the helicopters that fly from the Pacific side of Central America to the Atlantic side to the Pacific side, where the hospitals are, they fly, they've actually decided to make them higher atmospheric pressure so they can tolerate treating them if they're going to treat them for the bends, which basically is nitrogen bubbles coming out of their bloodstream. When these doctors thank you, do they give you specific cases that they've talked about?
No, they just talk about the innovation. They talk about the creativity with the coolers and the silencers. They talk about what we have done different than the rest of the market in making these so usable. It is the ergonomics that has impressed them the most. Because they know what hyperbarics does. They know it's good.
Yeah, exactly. These are trained doctors. But you're talking about which academy? Was that the Academy of Advancement in Medicine, ACAM, or Environmental Medicine, which, by the way, we often have academy meetings together conjointly, or the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine? Which one of the academies was it, or was it a combination?
It was a combination.
Yeah. Now, I want to go head to toe. First off, tell you why I like these compared to any other of the mild hyperbaric chambers, and there's a plethora of them. Number one, your chambers are more affordable. You have a new line that's even more affordable than even the regular line. Number two, the chambers are brighter because of the type of materials you use. They're safer because you have a pressure reading inside the chamber and extra belts and so on. And the material, the way you put it together, it's a safer chamber. They're larger chambers. You have the only vertical dive. I have the vertical grand dive. And it has 2 windows, one on the top and one on the side. You don't feel claustrophobic. In fact, the chamber's so big, I have a triangular chair and a big director's chair and a computer desk. So I can go in there and relax. When my son was visiting from Portland this last week, he went in the chamber for about 45 minutes, and he loved it. I have an oxygen concentrator, Respironics, that puts another 6 liters a minute, I think it is, into the compressor. So it's probably going to bump it up another 3 or 4% in oxygen from 21 to, say, 25, 26%. When you go through this, the first thing you notice is you feel very calmed. You feel like it's infusing an anti-inflammatory throughout your body. You feel like your blood vessels relax. You produce more nitric oxide. You're detoxing. In fact, if you use a detox like Lumen Photon or pulse magnetic field or Proline infrared sauna afterwards, or before, but afterwards, you're going to get a much more powerful detox reaction, pulling out heavy metals and chemicals out of your body. And like Sherry Rogers says, detox or die. I like her plain-faced statements. The fact is, head to toe, these chambers can have the side walls can be like a speaker, so you can play, you call calming music through the side if you want to do yoga or breathing techniques, or just read or meditate. They're brighter, they're non-claustrophobic, they're also quieter because of the design you've had for this noise reduction, and they have this special venting system to make sure that Boyle's Law, which would cause it to be a much warmer chamber, doesn't get as hot. And these new technologies that you've added are completely breaking the industry. Nobody else has them, and that's what I think is good. If we go from head to toe, if you got someone with a concussion, head and neck radiation therapy for cancer, a serious sinus infection, intraocular pressure problems, and retinal disease of some kind or other, coronary vascular disease, chronic lung problems, inflammatory bowel problems, autoimmune conditions, peripheral neuropathy, skin disorders, serious burns. I think every burn center should be a hyperbaric chamber. I think that every burn center should have a number of locks, and the person should be at 1.3 atmospheres continuously immediately after their burn so they'll heal faster. That would make sense, wouldn't it?
Yes, absolutely. And the key to it all is the chamber's comfortable and easy to use. Because if it's not, it sits in the corner, and no one heals by looking at the cure. They heal by getting in it.
Now, I think it's theoretically possible to set up what I call either locks. So a series of rooms in a building could be made as hyperbaric, whether it's yoga fitness training rooms or therapy rooms or treatment rooms like for burns or injuries or high-risk pregnancy where you're worried about hypoxia and things like toxemia, pregnancy, etc., hyperemesis gravidarum, where the woman is getting so nauseated and sick she could literally miscarry. Serious injuries like someone's had a heart attack or stroke, they should be put in hyperbaric intensive care unit. This is the ideal system where you're not, in the chamber for an hour and then out. You continuously need oxygen. So it's my guess that we should have hyperbaric, mild hyperbaric intensive care units where you walk into a lock. The doctors and nurses then are going to make sure they're not going to carry any pathogen in, but they're also the patient's now going to be perfused not just by blood, but by the oxygen compressed into their lipids of their body, their synovial fluid of their joints, the lymphatic fluid where it's not oxygen carrying on hemoglobin, and remote areas where their circulation is relatively poor because of age or disease. They're going to still get perfusion, which is going to turn on healthy genes and improvement of capillary growth so the person can heal. And I think it's going to transform a lot of areas of medicine. It's something so simple, but because they don't have the innovation you've had, they don't have the application, whether it should be, I'd like to see a hyperbaric cafe in airports where you go in and you've been flying at 8,000 feet basically for maybe many hours. Wouldn't it be great to be at 1.3 atmosphere and get a mocha latte after you come out to the airport for half an hour so that you can refresh yourself and get on in your rental car or take your bus to your vehicle and go home? I think
or better yet, when you're going out there to an important business meeting, you arrive at the meeting awake and feeling good instead of feeling sick.
Exactly. Now, if they want to get more information, how do they contact you, Bruce?
612-325-8243.
And you can talk about all the new special price breaks they get as well. Big sale coming on this weekend. If you want to give me any information to post up on any specials over the weekend, give me a shout and I'll post it. Thank you, Bruce.
Up until now, we have been...
Welcome back to the Nutrimedical Report. And I want to sort of discipline some of the people out there that are listening and know better. They need to get firegel.com. They need to go to firegel.com, tell them that you're referred by Dr. Bill in the Nutrimedical Report, because one of the things I learned as a trauma emergency burn doctor years ago was that 99% of really bad things that happen are on purposes, they're not accidents. And I invented this term called on purpose because when people can see the signs of danger, they drive an unsafe vehicle, whether it's a rig hauling a load that's not properly balanced in a commercial carrier, or they're driving on a mountain road at too high a speed with improperly inflated tires, or they're driving at night in the middle of a snow or rainstorm and freezing ice pellets, or they're trying to walk across the tightrope without a tightrope pole so you can balance yourself. Those are really on purposes. They're not accidents. And the same thing goes when you don't wait until disaster strikes when there's no water. We just got water restrictions hit us last week here in Southern California. Despite the little piddly rain, which did recharge Lake Henshaw and some of the areas up in Mount Shasta, we're still in an emergency rain situation here, and the fire situation is by no means over. And it's not just here. Across the country, there are gas lines that burst. And now that they're putting more and more of these switching mode power supply smart meter darn systems, they're putting electricity back down the areas, and there's electricity, which we know in the San Bruno fire actually triggered off an explosion and killed a number of people up in Northern California. That came out in the lawsuit, and we've had people come on the program and talk about it. So fire doesn't just strike areas that are dehydrated, like Texas and California. It strikes everywhere. And when fire starts, too, it can jump from your neighbor's home to your home. It can hit wildfire areas along the roads and the side areas, and it can spread pretty fast. And fire gel is the only biodegradable, non-toxic way of doing that in the world. And you discovered it, John, by actually seeing a baby diaper that didn't go away because it was a hydrated gel that allowed you to actually now display that with a regular hose attachment system in someone's home, or a more powerful hose system that can be used at the local fire department. So I'll be getting the Vista Fire Department their fire gel. I really want to strongly impress on people, you need to be prepared for extreme weather. And here's what's going to drive that extreme weather. Firstly, climate change, which means you're going to have climate. I'm going to exaggerate. You're going to have extreme climate, like the Venice lightning strikes that killed one person and injured a number of others, like the extreme weather of extreme floods and droughts, and extremely dangerous weather that's going to dehydrate some areas and flood others. This increases the risk of fires dramatically, like the increased ozone layer destruction, which is going to destroy the tops of trees along with Fukushima radiation, cesium and strontium. You're going to see a lot more forest fires. And I think what people should realize is you can't just think, well, my local fire department's highly equipped, we pay our taxes, etc. You need to be there to help them. You need to be there to also take personal responsibility for your home and your neighbor's home so that you can protect, like in Mount Palomar. So, John, tell us about, because we have little surges during the summer where people are purchasing systems, but I'm underwhelmed by the response. I really want people to realize just how dangerous this is and how we're moving into a time period where what we used to consider normal isn't normal anymore, where we're going to see a lot more fires, a lot more dangerous fires, a lot more fires that spread rapidly, and a lot of other factors such as the increased ozone destruction, increased dehydration, not only of the they've even said, for example, as the aquifers get dehydrated, they're increasing the risk of earthquakes, like the giant 6.0 earthquake that struck the Napa Valley and caused $60 billion estimated damage in Northern California just a few days ago. These are all tied and going to increase the risk of major fires because they're going to disrupt gas lines, disrupt infrastructure, knock down power lines, and cause a lot of havoc. And people aren't prepared for that. And as I can say, this is not an accident. This is going to be on purpose, because if people don't listen and do something, like we're getting fire gel, they're going to be responsible when they see their photos for their home, their furniture, their library, their books, their computers all go up in flames, their neighbor's home go, and they're going to be devastated because they, quote, lost everything. And there's no need for it. And that only means not just lost anything. There are going to be people die trying to go back for stuff, or they're not going to escape quickly enough. They're going to get trapped in roads. Fire is something that I take very seriously, working as a burn doctor back in the late 80s in Georgia. I saw people with 80% burns, third degree, and we're trying to put pigskin on them and trying to stop them from going into cardiac arrest from hypovolemic shock. And there's nothing more devastating, more scary than a rapidly moving fire that's frying people to crispy critters. So, John, tell us how do we get people to get their butt moving and realize that they are preparing and on purpose, not an accident?
Dr. Bill, your words ring so true, because we've had my company is made up mainly the majority of our employees are either current firefighters that work for us part-time or like myself, retired firefighters, and I can tell you it's a little bit frustrating because we've dedicated ourselves and our lives and our business to saving lives and property, and we've had the joy, if you will, of talking to people that have saved their house with barricade, but we've also had the frustration of people knowing about us. They hear about us on the Nutrimedical report. They know about fire gel, but as you were saying, they just don't take the effective action of actually getting it on hand. And I can tell you from many of the fires that have burned over the last several years, when the fires start and the smoke is in the air and the fire is racing up the mountain, our phones are ringing off the hook here. But most of the time then it's too late. This is really a product that they need to be proactive, that they need to get it in their hands, have the training in place, have the plan with the local fire agencies.
Right. In other words, they have to communicate with the fire department too, so they're aware that they do have these kinds of containers by their pools. They have poolside firepumps.com, which we had Bart Tuttle, who can't make it today, but maybe next week. That people need to be prepared for the fact that these kind of disasters are going to dramatically increase. As I say, there's a number of reasons why we call plasma events, and fire is a plasma event. What is a plasma? It's a charged molecule. As I proposed theoretically, and my background was I was supposed to go into theoretical plasma physics at MIT back from high school, and I had a special scholarship, and I have an interest in advanced chemistry and plasma physics. The plasma physics of fire is if you could hit it with a positively charged electron, you could break the plasma chain that causes fire to occur. It would be like if you want to call it the ultimate element that literally allows water to turn off fire by trapping, if you want to call it the plasma of fire. That's why you put fire out with water, not more fire. And the thing is, right now, that's what gel does. The fire gel actually traps those plasma particles, and if you just have to rehydrate it, it's good for a number of hours. So it's totally non-toxic. So you can put it on your vegetable garden, on your home, on your eaves, on your trees. And it's not going to cause them, all of a sudden to wilt or to die. It doesn't kill your trees. And it's not toxic to your animals if they happen to chew on something the next week or days later, and the toxic chemicals get in them, and all of a sudden they got liver cancer. This is safe. It's powerful. Everybody's got to get off their duff and realize fire is going to increase dramatically everywhere, not just in the dehydrated areas of countries around the world. And this is a miracle to stop the chain of fire ignition. That's what it is. Firegel.com. Contact them. Tell them you were sent by Dr. Bill. Stay right there, John. Welcome back. And, John, if you wanted to have callers now, we have that's 800-259-5791. Firegel.com. Tell them you're sent by Nutrimedical. Also, for Bart Tuttle, it's poolsidefirepumps.com, and of course they're out of Southern California. Those fire pumps are really important. If you have a pool, you have a major source of water, because you can't be surprised if we have major fires that the water pressure will be there, or if it's cut off, if there's any other major problem. Or if you have storage tanks. For example, I have a water recovery system for my roof, and I have a 2,500-gallon and a 500-gallon storage tank. I'm also considering putting in a well. Out of our 8 homes, we have another family literally across our cul-de-sac, our Korean family, who have a considerable amount of resources financially that will assist in us being able to put in a conjoint well. I tell people you need to start preparing for these kind of things. And a lot of districts in the country, too, like here in California, some places they don't allow you to collect the water from your roof, such as Oregon or Washington State, believe it or not, even though they have tons of water. But if you don't have fire gel, in these areas that have lots of forests, you can have cinders fall on your roof from fire 5 miles away. So you think, I don't see, it's nowhere near my home. No, the updrafts can carry those cinders on your roof, and even if you have a tile roof, you're kind of a little better off. But if it hits the eaves or any trees or plants under the eaves, once it gets under the eaves of your house can literally explode. And once it reaches a certain temperature, anything that's at or below that incineration point will literally explode in fire. It's just quite remarkable, isn't it?
Yeah, these monsters, these monster fires are getting worse and worse each year. The weather conditions, the drought, and of course the fact that we're building our homes more and more into what we call the wildland-urban interface, the WUI areas. It's just all culminating in wildfire losses like we've never seen before in the history of man.
Well, here in Southern California, a lot of people think we're kind of one house on top of the other. Nothing could be further from the truth. The vast majority of homes, even right here, and we're outside the city of Vista, about maybe 5 minutes outside the city up in the mountains, and we're on a blue granite mountain, which is the second hardest rock on the planet, so it's all driven into rebar, so we're nowhere near a fault line. But we're literally right on the border, so literally on the other side of our road, on our back road, there's a den there for coyotes. We got rattlesnakes all over the place here. I mean, you got luckily, the one thing that stops is we got a wall around our entire property, except our front gate for our driveway. But we've had king snakes, gopher snakes, and just down the road we had 10 feet, 6 to 10 feet long rattlers, and so we're in the wildlands. We're in that zone there. And I remember just a few years ago, we kind of called the fire marshal and say, hey, the next door neighbor didn't cut down their grass or their weeds and stuff, and it was sticking 4, 5, 6 feet high. That's tinder conditions. I mean, if you have anybody just throw a fire butt or a lightning strike that area, boom, it just blows up. And once it gets a firewall, I call it. And I saw this out in Alberta, Canada years ago, and in British Columbia when we had fires in the Douglas firs there and up near Hope, BC, and up near Lytton, which is up toward the mountains. It's the scariest thing you ever saw in your life. If you think nuclear war is scary, this is pretty dang close. And you can see a firewall moving at you 200 miles an hour or 3,000 degrees. That's really, really scary. You can't outrun it. You can't drive faster than it unless you're one of these super fast vehicles on the salt flats or something. It's moving at you at a speed, and you can feel the heat miles away. It's like, whoa.
Yeah, they create their own weather conditions. These wildfires get so big that they create their own updrafts and weather conditions, and that's why the homeowner has to take a proactive role. A wildfire in the wildland-urban interface is not an everyday event. It's the fire departments are very capable of handling the everyday emergencies, the house fires, the medical emergencies. But the homeowner, if they're going to save their home in these wildland fires, these unique conditions, they're going to have to take an effective action. And many people, fire professionals, have called barricade a quantum leap in home fire protection, that the homeowner can take that effective action. They can safely put it on using a garden hose well before it's time to evacuate. That's an important point, Dr. Bill. We don't want to we don't want to be misunderstood as stay there, Mr. Homeowner, in the smoke and the flames and spray your house down. That's the farthest thing from the truth and our message. But the homeowner can put this on many hours, in fact, if not days in advance of wildland fire conditions. Then when it's time to evacuate, they can evacuate to a place of safety, knowing that that the home is much safer because the gel is on there, and they can also know that the fire department stands a better chance of saving their home now, because all they've got to do, all the firefighters have to do, knowing that the gel is in place, is simply re-wet, rehydrate, just simply mist the house with a little bit of water that keeps that gel active and keeps the fire protection in place for days at a time if necessary.
I'm going to make a couple of what I call technical recommendations that maybe if there's other firefighters, because I'm going to try to problem solve and kind of dissect it down. And I tell people, I said, if you can challenge this, I would like to see what I call firecopters, where basically from a distance, whether it's a drone, it could be a drone, it doesn't have to be a helicopter or a person that's manned by a person. Let's say a drone, it would fly over an area using infrared cameras, and it would send a picture back of the hydration conditions of this specific, what I call high fire danger spots. It could then map out the GPS coordinates of it, and could have another drone that could literally spray a degree of the fire gel over those hot spots. And you could have a fairly large drone. I mean, the drone could be anywhere from 10 feet to 20 feet across. They could be carrying tanks of the fire gel material, and you could literally have a firefighter that wouldn't be put in danger flying into the areas and could go over homes, over the sides of mountains, because what happens is the heat sweeps up the side of a bluff or cliff and then hits these hot spots and jumps from one to another until finally the whole area explodes. And the thing about infrared cameras is you can actually see the areas that are dehydrated even before fire strikes them. Infrared cameras, depending on the spectral analysis of it, you could dial in and say, here's the hot spots, and these are the GPS coordinates down to a meter, and it would then tell you exactly where you have to have that we call the ignition chain broken. That might be another technology that could be developed. If anybody's out there inventive, think of inventing if you want to call a fire gel drone that would literally take that drone technology and use it instead of for killing people in a wedding party in Afghanistan. How about putting out fires in Southern California and Texas? How about putting out fires in some other place in the world where it could cut off communities and their roads, it could trap people, it could kill a lot of people, especially if things like major geotectonic events happen, like Walmart, for example, within 200 to 300 miles of the NUTRIMEDS fault system now are doing drills. This is Walmart Corporation. This is announced a month ago for major fires and cut off of power and communications and travel communications from the NUTRIMEDS fault system. And the main danger they're worried about is fire. And they have a lot of them are now switching to either solar panels or their own, we call these cell type of kind of power generation systems. But fire control is extremely important, especially if you have an earthquake or if you have some kind of event that breaks up gas lines, because we're covered by hundreds of thousands of miles of gas lines all over the United States. And people don't realize, even in areas that are relatively well hydrated, especially that have a lot of trees, like the Midwest and the South, fire can spread pretty darn fast, especially if you have a lot of fuel, if you say, waiting around, including people. People are fuel, too, if you have a high enough temperature. And it's scary. And people, we need to start converting these into problems that can be solved, is what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
So, John, next week I think we're going to have back on Bart Tuttle. If they want to contact you, what's the best number to contact to call you? That number, 800.
They can call us toll-free, 1-800-201-3927, and they can reach us at firegel.com.
1-800-201...
3927.
Excellent. Thank you. Welcome back, and we have for Reed, and we're talking about KARDOVITE. Coming up in hour number 3, we're going to have Barry Chamish major update on what's going on in Israel. Tomorrow we have Dr. Mike Kaufman on the first hour, and of course a major update with Tim Alexander in the third hour, and Chris Harris, our nuclear expert, and I'm of course on the second hour of Rents as a guest every Thursday evening. Want you to understand, if you have questions that you want read on air, you can contact Michelle. It's my wife, who hosts the first hour of the firing line on Fridays. That's the only hour that we don't take calls, and we try to do them on a topical basis during the hours. And the second hour, usually it's health and wellness issues. So for Reed, I tell people one of the most important things you can do for your body is to detox, to protect your vasculature, to get rid of heavy metals and chemicals, to improve your delivery of oxygen and nutrients to the tissues. And the key supplement formula we use for that is KARDOVITE. Now, people say, what are the key 2 or 3 things that I would tell people to take every day? I would say KARDOVITE, Vitamineral Max Minerals Plus, and say Omega Supreme. You can add to that depending on the specific health conditions that their history dictates, the toxins they've been exposed to. And the reason is, if you don't protect your microcirculation, you can't protect your mitochondria, which determine your health. You live as well as your capillaries, you live as old as your mitochondria. How's that? And if your microcirculation is good and you're delivering nutrients and taking out toxins, you're going to live well. But if you build up toxins and you don't deliver oxygen and nutrients and pull away the toxic crap that's in your body, you're going to get in a lot of trouble. And the doctors that pour in tons of drugs, the average person over 50 in America now is getting on up to 10 drugs or more. I think that's obscene. And the doctors don't use enough care to understand how those detox pathways, they aren't even aware of the detox cytochrome systems that are involved, like 3A4, 2D6. In fact, if you quote those for specific drugs, they're completely boggled because they haven't even read the small print in the PDR, physician desk reference, or the pharmaceutical drug manuals themselves. which I find pretty disturbing. That's why the doctors are like, as one of my friends said in the tank division years ago when I took care of tank division guys from Camp Pendleton, they're in a warfare where they're hanging their butt over a tank window and they're not expecting to get shot. That's not very smart. So, Kardovite, and I tell people literally every person over age 20 should be on Kardovite because it's free iron, heavy metals, promote cholesterol oxidation and fatty acid oxidation. That's the primary nidus of inflammatory changes to your circulation that are going to cause heart disease, vascular disease, carotid artery disease, descending vertebral artery disease, disease to your vasculature to your lower extremities, vasculature to your eyes. You know what I mean? It goes on, and Kardovite is so straightforward. And I hear about, they call Me Too formulas out there, Heart and Body, Strauss Heart Drops, Extendivite, whatever. These are all Me Toos. They're not the original or the advanced formula with the actual sources. And every batch is checked for the source materials like Vitexin, which is determined by its high-pressure chromatography presence and the right concentration for every batch. So we have people that are converted from all these other formulas, and they switch and say, wow, this stuff is much more powerful and consistent. So tell us about why it's so good and why people who have switched are so happy with the improvement in their health.
Sure. Well, I'll tell you a little bit about the research that went into it. This was a product that was developed by my dad. My dad is a pharmacist, now retired. And Dad was trained and educated in Würzburg, Germany, and in the 60s. And part of his pharmacist education included the study of pharmacognosy, which is really just a fancy way of saying the study of medicinal plants. So when he came to Canada, he had this knowledge. He had, clinical practice in Germany, prescribing medicinal plants. And to his surprise, nobody in North America, when he opened his first pharmacy, really knew about herbal medicine at all. And, in fact, it was shunned. And really wasn't treated with any sort of respect at all. So he Big surprise.
Big surprise. The genius, pharmacists, people don't realize how highly trained pharmacists are. I think their skills and their knowledge base is vastly underutilized. Years ago, pharmacists would be custom compounders right into the 60s. It's only in the last maybe 35 years where they've been basically been pushed to the back of a large store like Walmart and become pill counters. They were on the same level as a physician.
Yeah.
They were not doing surgical procedures, but they were considered on the same level as a physician, and they prescribed. They did a lot of other things. They had custom compounding. A lot of pharmacists were, quote, practitioners.
My dad is a compounding pharmacist. He did all kinds of stuff.
Right.
He did suppositories and creams. He did a progesterone cream. And, it's a craft and a real profession. And, you're right. I mean, that's one of the things I remember him telling me as a kid was, son, don't go into pharmacy. All they do here is count pills. And, but, he decided, he's going to put his knowledge to use. And he started to bring in herbal medicines from Europe and started telling people about them and started getting people onto some alternatives besides, prescription medicines. Now, he's not, as a pharmacist, he's not entirely against prescription medicines, but what his argument always is that, you can often accomplish the same thing, if not better results, in herbal medicine with fewer side effects.
Right. What you want to do is give people choices. I mean, people can choose to take what I call the quick and dirty pill that'll get your blood pressure down in about 4 hours, but it might reverse perfusion to your brain and your kidneys, so you go in renal failure, or you end up losing a bunch of clues in IQ. Or you can take natural therapies that aren't toxic and don't require detoxification in your liver, which may be failing as you get older. Won't cause renal failure, and will get your blood pressure down maybe 2 weeks, but it does it in a physiological way that's safe and won't cause hypoperfusion to your brain and kidneys. That's the difference. And also, you don't end up with toxic buildup of either toxic of the drugs or toxic byproducts or imbalances of other systems that are going to cause all kinds of new health problems. So
exactly.
You got to give people choices. I tell people, there's still. I was just reading an article the other day about Dr. Ward Dean trying to push metformin. I'm thinking, forget it, Dr. Ward Dean. You might consider yourself a wellness doctor, but if we have things like diabetoline, which has been a double-blind, placebo-controlled trial, is superior to metformin, why would you take a drug? If you can take Kardovite and you can detox, by the way, there isn't a drug that will compare or replace Kardovite. because you have to detox free iron, heavy metals, kill the nanobacteria off, stimulate nitric oxide production, balance the autonomic nervous system, improve microcirculation, and stimulate stem cells. I don't know of any, quote, drug or combination of drugs that will do that. So, you know, and again, somebody says, well, the only drug I need is a diet. That's foolishness. Because firstly, even the organic foods now are still mineral depleted. And it's important to have a detoxed, you know, GMO-free diet. But without the use of supplements on top of that, you can't possibly balance your genetic heritage, your toxic load you have from the crazy environment, which you get in air, food, and water. So you have to take supplements. It's not really an option. If you don't, you're like a one-legged man trying to win in the steeplechase. It's not going to happen. So you're not going to win the race, in other words, if you think just a clean diet or taking drugs is going to get you there with your doctor, or you always say, well, my doctor knows best. No, your doctor doesn't know best. Your doctor doesn't have time to read journals, or they don't have the predilection to it, or they don't want to read because the guilt will drive them crazy, because they know if they start changing their practices, they'll be jumped on by their hospital privileges committee, their state licensing authority, or their colleagues will just kind of sneer at them because they have a higher survival rate. We had this comment by Dr. Russell Blaylock, who mentioned that in a neurointensive care unit, just because he was using higher magnesium intravenous and he was reducing post-operative meningioma surgery, intracranial hypertension, or post-traumatic brain injury, or preventing spinal gliosis after traumatic spinal injury, because he had higher survival rates, he got persecuted by his colleagues because he was just more successful. So it isn't always what you expect. I mean, you think the doctors are going to not act like bad children. Wrong. You know, hit the button, the wrong button. The fact is, they're vicious, nasty children, you know, like they're, you know, from the bowels of Hades. So you have to understand that people are often very gutless. People are frightened. I take an attitude of either prove me wrong, and I'm more than willing to be taught by, it doesn't have to be somebody qualified. They can be a smart grandmother or a smart child, or get out of the way and follow. And if they can prove me wrong, do it, but choose facts. And that's why I take Kardovite every day. If you're not taking it, you're taking your life in your own hands, because calcification of your coronary artery speeds up if you don't protect your arteries. Plaque forms, microcirculation, heavy metals and chemicals accumulate in your body. And like Sherry Rogers says, detoxify or die. I believe her. Kardovite, a tonic for life. Get it today at Nutrimedical. We have specials now, and even super specials over the holiday. We deliver all over the world with amazing shipping rates anywhere on the planet. Can't beat it. Stay right there for Reed. We'll get you booked up. And Barry Chamish, hour number 3, coming up in just a few minutes. The top of the hour 3. We'll be back in a minute.